Okay, good morning, Shell.
Good morning, Peg. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing okay too.
You are the world traveler this week.
I just traveled in Arizona, not the world.
My
Looks
kids
like
are
it's live on my pad, so that must mean we're going. Good, good. I don't see anyone to welcome yet. That's unusual. Usually they're here already. Oh, there's
Cindy
Cindy.
Bagley's here. I see her.
Yep, she just popped on. And now, hello, hello. This
Hello.
have the challenge up and the mood board up already. Um, we are talking about and focusing about mediums this month. So the hashtag is AJOS mediums, Art Joy of Sharing Mediums, and we're just gonna play with different mediums and explore them and learn about them all month. So I was going to suggest that you guys get some inexpensive index cards, or if you have a stack of tags, blank tags, and as you're working along and playing along and learning this month, that you make yourself a little ring book. And you can just take some of these type of things. You can punch, you can take notes on it, do the technique with the medium, write down what the medium is, and then you'll have a little ring because there are a lot of mediums out there, and we'll be exploring lots and lots of them this month. Today on this live stream, I'm going to focus on gesso. But there are a lot of other things for the rest of the month. It's still just only the 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I hope you guys are having Mexican food and margaritas today.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
So let's talk about gesso. You want to talk about gesso, Peg? Gesso
Good thing to talk about.
is such a basic thing, but people don't understand what it is. Peggy says that Walmart has unlined 4x6 cards for $1.46. What a deal. I've already got a couple of them started here because I wanted to let some stuff dry while I was working. And then I also have a few things already drying in a couple different books just to play with. But gesso, historically, probably started in Greece, they're assuming. And gesso, the word means chalk. And basically, it is an acrylic ground. Ground meaning something that you prime with, whether it's to prime wood, prime canvas, prime fabric, prime whatever, to make a surface that things will stick to. That's the basic use of gesso. Sometime in, I think it was, I looked it up, but I think it was like 16 something. A company came up with the idea of making a water-based gesso, which added calcium carbonate to acrylic base and became a water-based gesso. And that's what we use today. We don't use an oil-based gesso or a chalk-based gesso. Calcium carbonate being plaster of Paris. So basically, it's an acrylic medium with plaster of Paris, which makes it very matte, sometimes rough, because sometimes they add a little bit of texture to it to give something they call tooth, which is scratchiness. So some of these ones that I have here, depending on the brand, I've got a lot of different ones out here. I've got some Liquitex ones. I've got some Deco Art, some Art Basics, some Golden brand. This one is another Art Basics. And this one's Daniel Smith, which is a funny one. But depending on the brand, depending on what it says on the package, it can be thicker or thinner. It can have color or not have color. This one right here that I just bought is clear gesso. It's completely clear. I'm not sure how you get calcium carbonate that's clear. Maybe it's silica in this. But anyway, I've got this one because this clear gesso from Liquitex is scratchy. It's good for pastels and stuff because it's scratchy, but this one isn't. This one's just completely clear and flat. So depending on the brand, you might get something different. And then of course there's thicknesses, like this one is a super heavy gesso. This one is heavy gesso, and then this one is just regular gesso. I got a couple different ones of black, 3 different black ones here. And this Deco Art one is actually kind of gray. So, you know what? Everything is not the same, just like with any other product. Things are not the same depending on what you get. If you like the idea of priming something with a color, you might try black or you might try gold. This gold is really fun. So we'll probably play around with that. But that's what it is. Ways that you can apply gesso to your surface can also be interesting. You can apply it with a card. I think that's one of the best ways to do it, is to apply it with some type of card and make it really smooth that way. But you can also use tools like this. This is a good, well, I got it dirty, so now it's dirty. But this type of a silicone blade tool, they come in different sizes, you know. These are a good option to apply gesso. You want to, if you're applying it to something that has texture, you want to really press down. So a silicone tool is a good choice for priming. And you can also use a palette knife, or as you know, depending on what texture you want, you can also use a brush. So some people use chip brushes, those cheap brushes, and then they just throw them away. I just use a regular acrylic brush and wash it out. But it does.
And the chip brushes wash out really good too. They just, you know, people are crazy throwing everything away.
Yeah. I think that the gesso tends to do something like this to your brush eventually. So you might want to just keep one for that. But washing it out, it's still soft. It's just kind of does some weird, gets down into the ferrule of the brush and kind of makes it weird. So there's all kinds of things you can do with gesso, but the basic idea of gesso is that it's a ground or a primer. It just happens to do like 1,000 other things, really fun things. Lisa, hi Lisa. We already welcome Cindy. Hi Peggy, Barbara, Jenny. If I missed anyone, we already said hi to Nello. Hi Sybil. Forgotten everybody? I think so.
I think so. You're on top of it there.
Cindy, Jenny, Peg, Nell, Peggy, Lisa, Sybil. Okay.
So I am messing around with a bunch of different products. You know, when you're a mixed media artist, you got this whole arsenal of stuff. And some of the techniques that I like to use are just, you know, to make components for art. The first thing I did this morning was I was die cutting some different shapes out of napkin material. And it's not just napkin material. Let me show you what I've got here. This is, trying to think. I think this is just a kitchen roll, okay? It's just a piece of kitchen roll. And you can see the texture on this butterfly. And depending on the type of die that you use, like this one is a very delicate cutout one. Now, I could sit and pick all of this stuff out or not, but for this technique, I like this type of die better because it's just got the embossing on it. So, you know, you've got options with these different die that you may have in your stash. This paper, you guys, do you ever go to the store and get something that you didn't think you were buying? I've got these rolls of 1-ply toilet paper. Very not what I typically put in my bathroom, right? So where's it end up? Well, it ends up in my art studio because I can fold those different pieces up. You can see this is the same butterfly that's done on this 1-ply toilet roll. And I've just, you know, doubled it over, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, wound it around my hand so that I've got a glob of it, right? And then I put the die on there and cut it out. And so then I get these wonderful pieces. Well, you're going to say, well, okay, that's well and good, but what are you going to do now? Well, I'm going to colorize them. And one of the ways that you can add some color is just by using napkins. These are cut using napkins. This is a, just a dollar store napkin, something that I picked up because last fall I wanted some napkins this color for my table. And I thought, well, that would make a good goldfish, right? And it would also make good gold leaves for the fall. And then I thought, well, I've got these leaves, and I've got these napkins that have fall colors on them, like this. And I thought, well, that's perfect to die cut these leaves from these napkins because they've already got some color on them. Now I can add color, and I think for being a mixed media artist, I prefer to add color with something that isn't going to move. However, if you use watercolor, you can seal it. You can seal it with embossing powder. You can seal it with wax. You can seal it with medium, with a matte medium. You can, there's lots of different ways that you can approach this. So don't be discouraged if you use something that's water-based. There are plenty of ways that I can use a water-based something on here. So let me try a few things here. I am going to show you a few other techniques, but I'm going to let Shell talk for a little bit while I just work on these.
So I just wanted to show you guys that there is a difference. I mean, this is golden black gesso, this is Liquitex black gesso, and this is DecoArt black gesso, which is the one I said is gray. Look at the difference in color, look at the difference in texture between these three different brands. So you say, okay, I'm going to get gesso. Well, there is a difference between the prices and the quality of gesso. So you may eventually find one that you just really love, and that's the one you want to use. Something that I like to do with gesso, and I think that this one that I just had, what did I do with it? This black one from DecoArt Premium Americana would be great for this because this one is way thicker than the others. The others were like fluid paint, and this one was more thick. So something that you can do, and I would say that it's pretty fun, is to do texture with gesso. And one of the ways you can do it is to just scribe into it. And I should have done that one because I poured too much, and so I painted that one with it. But it's kind of fun to use a stencil or other tools, which I'll show. But see how thick this one is in comparison to the other ones? It's thick, thick, thick. Maybe it's because it comes in a tube. I don't know. Different brand. But it's fun to add texture to things with a thick gesso. Now this one says heavy on it. This one says super heavy on it. This one doesn't say that it's heavy, but yet it is. So I don't know. Anyway, you can take your silicone tool or something and drag through a stencil and make a really awesome texture, which we'll play with a little bit later. So if you don't have a texture paste, which probably next week we'll talk about all the different types of texture pastes in the world, which are lots, you can still do something like that with a gesso if you have one that's thick. If your gesso isn't thick, you might consider taking a little bit of it into a cup and adding some plaster of Paris to it. There's also lots of recipes out there to make your own gesso, which I did when I very first started mixed media. I made some with baby powder.
Oh yeah.
And
I think we all had to try that one.
Yeah, and it smelled great.
Yeah.
It smelled great. I
Yeah.
loved it. But it did eventually run out, and I bought gesso eventually. But I think it was like cheap acrylic paint, like craft paint mixed with baby powder. I don't know if there's anything else in it. But that's a way to thicken it if you want to make
Well, I know there's recipes out there. So if you guys want to make some of your own, especially for junk journals, I mean, you don't need high quality gesso for a junk journal.
That
But
being said, of course, I like all the high quality stuff.
well, I like it because it has different texture and finish and drying time and color, and there are reasons we buy these things. If it's a piece of art that might be hung on somebody's wall, I definitely want to use a better quality material. But for a junk journal, yeah, I can save some money. And I can
Dang it. Why is everything sealed shut?
whoa. So I want to say hi to everybody that's popping in now. We had a few more people join us, and
I
it's
can't
always
open
good to
this
see
one.
everybody here.
Come on.
So I'm just you can see the layers as I separate this. And, you can add some glue to these later, but I like how puffy these are. And when you add something wet to it, it's going to get even puffier. So let me do some of that while we're talking here.
My pen, there it is.
I've got these two butterfly, and I'm going to use some golden paints on this. I've got some high flow. This is Hansa yellow. So of course that would be good on our butterfly. And let me get a little brush.
Yeah, this one's gritty.
Move that around a little bit. And I'm going to add some of this bright payroll orange.
Peggy, I would say just buy the black gesso. You know what? This one that's a little bit on the gray side, but is thick, is really inexpensive. This is inexpensive types.
Yeah.
Whereas the golden one, which is the first one I put on there, that one that's not quite dry yet, that one's expensive. And then this Liquitex is somewhere in between, and it's actually the most thick, the most opaque. It's not thick, but see how the golden gesso, you can see through it? You need to put a couple coats. If you're just going to, if you're just basing something, if you're just putting down gesso to seal it and, make a ground. This one hasn't even been really opened very much. Then you usually use about 3 coats to prime something. So it doesn't really matter if that black is a little bit more transparent. I don't know why it is, but so this is clear gesso. Clear gesso is fun if you want to maintain a color under something, or if you want to seal something. That's a couple uses for it, but it also does other fun stuff. And you're going to see me doing a lot of my favorite technique, which is gesso resist. I love gesso resist.
And I'm going to show you a few other resist techniques because I can. So
resist is my favorite thing in the whole world. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, it's like people are like, I don't know how you did that. So I put my 2 different clears on there, and even as it dries, I don't know if you guys can see. I'm trying to put it up where you can see. I don't think you can, but you can see that this one, the one on the bottom, which is the Art Basics clear, doesn't have any grit, but the one that's the Liquitex clear above it does. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's got texture, and this one doesn't. And that's the reason that I bought this one, because I wanted something that was clear with no grit. So when you want grit is when you're using pastels and things like that need to have something to attach to. But when you don't want grit, maybe you just want to seal something and you don't want it to be gritty. So I'm going to have to write on there, but it's not dry yet. So I'm going to have to try to remember which one's which. So earlier I was putting the golden gesso through different things. I used this one and this one. I'm going to put the clear away now. I've got too many things on my desk. They're taking over the world. And I need someone to come in and open this freaking gold for me. Oh, there we go. I finally got it.
Yeah, I got my opener out. If you guys don't have those things like this is for my tubes, and I got some heavy tubes out here like this. So these are gonna work on this type of lid. And then I've got the bigger ones for the bigger jars because, you know, and then I've got the one that's up underneath my cupboard that I can use both hands and cram it into. Because
That
these
one
things
was
become
very
difficult.
separated.
Saying they become difficult.
I'm also blocking the light. Had to stir that up, the Daniel Smith. But this is really fun to play with, this gold gesso. It'll just give like, you can use it as a base, as a ground, and then it will just give kind of almost a shine to everything you do over the top of it. Daniel Smith is usually a watercolor brand. They make a lot of watercolors, and they also have what's called a Watercolor Ground, which is a primer for watercolor. So that if you're not using a piece of watercolor paper, you're using something else to do your watercolor over, then you can buy that ground, and it's gold. There is a gold one, so you could have an underpainting of gold under your watercolor, which is pretty darn pretty because watercolor is translucent in most cases, right? So you see the shimmery gold underneath. But I don't think I ever bought that, but I thought about it. It's kind of expensive. Daniel Smith is kind of expensive no matter what product you're getting. So that's the gold gesso. Now, if you like the idea of a gesso color, there are others. There's red iron oxide gesso, there's orange gesso, there's blue gesso, there's green gesso. Those are the ones that I've seen. But what if you didn't want to just go buy it? What if you just wanted to have a tint? You could make your own tint. And the way that you do that, because these are all acrylic-based water gessos, right? We're not using those thick, chalky oil ones, is you can just take white or clear, depending on what color you want to get. Remember, if you mix something white with acrylic paint, then you get a tint, right? A tint being a lighter color of the acrylic paint. If you mix something with something clear, like the clear gesso, you will get the actual color of it. It'll thin it out. And if you mix it with black, you get a shade. So you might get something different each time. Of course, I picked one of the paints that's like all thick and nasty now. I should have picked a fluid one. Dang it. Because now I got to break up the thick nastiness of this paint I just grabbed. So you can definitely tint your own gesso.
Oh, yeah.
And if you happen to be a person who's really into art and you've got powdered pigments, you can also put those in.
So I'm gonna put some clear embossing powder over these die cut leaves, and I'm just going to use some Versamark ink to stick that down with. Now I can pick either side of this because, you know, it's a napkin and it had multiple sides and colors, or I could do both. You know, if I wanted to put this into a bouquet, suppose I wanted to do a 3D piece and I wanted to encapsulate the whole thing, I can do that. You know, I can put embossing powder on both sides of this particular leaf. So I'm just going to get some ink onto these. I need my tool to keep them from flying around when I go to heat set because these are small and they will just blow right off your desk. I'm telling you. Now this one, I could have added some more of those colors to it, but I'm just going to do this one with the embossing. And you could use different colors of embossing powder. Let me set that one aside and let's use some different color embossing powder on it because we've got some of those translucent ones from Tim Holtz. So I'll give those a try and show you what that looks like. Thanks, Barb. So here's the clear embossing powder, and I want a pair of tweezers, I think. Yeah, here's a pair of tweezers. So I'm just gonna pick this up. I'm gonna dip it in to my clear and shake the excess off. And I'm gonna do that for these two more. Now, these are old techniques. I think I first saw this on, I think Split Coast Stamper. So if you want to see how somebody else attacks this, you can go over to Split Coast Stamper and watch their version.
Texture Gesso Premium.
And I want a hot heat gun to emboss with. You know, I have my one that disperses air. This one directs air. So I'm going to turn this on. It's going to be noisy. Sorry, guys. Hi, Rennie.
Okay, so that's the clear gesso on a card, and that's the one that doesn't have grit in it. You do the same thing with white gesso, and then I just happen to have some golden white gesso over here. And we're gonna play with these. This idea. But the problem with all these is that they got to dry down before I can do anything else. So if you're using a stencil and putting gesso through a stencil, this is going to be what's called a gesso resist. But something that's kind of fun, if you've got a lot of gesso on there like that, you can use what's on your left over on your stencil and create a reverse print, and also kind of clean it at the same time, because you really don't want thick mediums. At the class I was at this weekend, it was with the owner of Stencil Girl Products, Mary Beth Shaw, and she wanted to get rid of some of her stencils that had too much paint on them. So she brought them and let us cut them up and make them into other stuff.
Oh, fun.
It's like a whole stack of super
I would
thick.
have had a ball with that.
Some of us do not clean stencils, right? Unless they've got, so there's, I don't know if I'm in the screen. There's the reverse of what I just did, and I had enough gesso on that to make it two times. So I'm gonna have to let all this stuff dry. That's the problem. I've got like all these little cards everywhere trying to dry. I'm not doing a very good job of drying. Dumb things. Go. Just all of you go. Tinted gesso, gold gesso. Geez. Where am I going to put all these things? I'm going to have to write on them so that I can make them into my little ring. Okay, so what if you've got some ones that are called heavy or super heavy gesso? What are those for? Well, the most fun thing to do with that.
I know.
It makes great texture, right?
Yeah.
So you can take the super heavy and you can put it on something like your page in your journal. Just remember, I'm putting these on cards because I'm going to make this little ring of reminders for my brain. I don't know anyone who needs reminders for their brain.
I need a lot of reminders.
You can make it really have a lot of textures, like a wall, right? Look at that. That's pretty fun. Just a texture. Just by putting your tool in it and smooshing it. Like now it's like from the 70s and it needs to go back there because this texture is awful on a wall. But you know what I'm saying. You can also press things into it. Let's just clean this off. What happened to my... I'm going to go through a lot of baby wipes. to feel a little bit dirty about that.
So I'm going to pull out a few of these. These are embossing glazes because they have color to them, but they're transparent, which I like. They're translucent anyway. So I've got several colors of these. This is fossilized amber, you know, the standard colors from Tim Holtz Distress line. And here's that leaf in the gold napkin. So if I add some of these colors in different tones, I'm not going to dip the whole thing. I'm going to take my leaf. Let's get a couple of these open because I want a little more variety. So I've got the
My stick.
crackling fire, fossilized amber, and this one is what? Some kind of green. I can't read it because it's dark. But definitely leaf colors, right? Move that over a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to just dip the very bottom of this into that green. And then turn it a little bit. And I'm going to go into the red. Add some more color to the tip of my leaf. And then I want to add some of this fossilized amber. I may have to shake a little bit out just to get to the center of my leaf. And I can see there's a little bit of separation here, so I'm just going to hit it with a tiny drop of this art glitter glue. This is one of my favorites with the needle point to get into these little tiny places. And let's heat set this. Actually, I think I want to move that and distress it a little bit more. I don't like that straight line on there. So I'm just taking my finger and rubbing it a little bit. And this stuff will stick to the glue too. So if I wanted to add a little bit more of that green in on the tip there, I can do that. Okay, you see that? So let me heat that. Uh-oh. I must have wiggled it. There we go.
So another fun thing to do with the heavy gesso is to put a coat of it on there and then press things into it. That can be stamps, that can be, you know, any kind of thing you have on your desk, like these little tiles. You can press into them and make a impression. You can also scratch into it. So these are all really fun ways to make texture on your page to get started with some sort of something interesting on your page when you're creating a journal page or a canvas or whatever. So super heavy gesso and heavy gesso basically will do the same thing. I was just trying to use this one up because it's almost empty. So it's a favorite. I need to order some more of that. So let's start playing with some of these things. They've all been really boring so far because all I've been doing is putting gesso on things.
Oh, but you know, they make great stuff.
And I do have to let all these dry. However, earlier I did put some things. Oh, geez. I just got gesso all over my container that holds my scissors. I mean, I'm a mess here. Too much stuff, not enough room. So I want all those things to dry. So I did put, you remember when I did that thing with the putting the gesso, that's a clear one, putting the gesso through a stencil and then also flipping the stencil over. That's clear gesso. What the heck am I doing? I don't know where the other one went. Oh, here it is. That one's the clear, I think. Yeah. So this is the positive and negative of the stencil, right? That I did earlier. It's actually pretty dry, but I did it with a different stencil even earlier. And I want to show you what you can do with that. If you want to make something permanent, you can use an acrylic ink over it if you can open it. Freaking dragon. Never open anything these days. Just got gesso all over that lid. That was maybe not the right thing to use. How about my raggy? Actually, I did it on this art journal page too, so maybe we'll just do that instead. I wanted to use a dark one to start out with, and it can be a thinned acrylic paint or a fluid paint. After I open that, I'm like, oh, I'd rather have blue, purple. Now I have one called Nightfall or something like that. Yes, because this is in my junk journal. It has a light side and a dark side. So I was going to use a dark with it. And I probably need a clean baby wipe. This is probably going to be a huge mess. I hope I put my art guard on. I can't remember.
I don't know if I did. And one of those recordings. Okay, so this is the pink. What do they call this? This is the Kitsch Flamingo.
Quiche Flamingo. I need to get more on there. I'm going to make this side as dark as the other side. But it's all just wants to run down in there. In the center. Silly thing.
So let's see what this turns out like. And I heat set these. It'd be pretty, huh? Don't go to the dark side, Luke. Oh man.
So that side is really absorbent. That's one thing. This side is not absorbent. And so the ink is not absorbing into the card very well. Strangely. It is a glossy paper birthday card. That is this side of the junk journal. So I'm not getting the same effect.
The idea. How you can embellish these. So moving on. I might come back to that goldfish later if I get to
I'm
it.
just going to let that side dry for a little while and then wipe it back. But as you can see, where the gesso was on the absorbent paper, it did a resist. So we can do the same thing with these things that we made earlier. Let's try some different colors.
One of the things that I did this morning is, you know, I took the napkins out of a packaging, right? So you got this clear plastic that just normally goes into the trash. Well, you can stamp directly on this plastic. You only need to use something that's going to work on a slick surface like your Stays On ink. So that's what I did is I took some Stays On ink. I stamped these art foamy stamps onto that surface, and then you can create something fun with a background paper or something behind it. These are just gonna, cut out and layer up. But that's stuff that would have just been tossed and thrown into the trash. All right. So think about it when you're unpackaging something down here in the studio. Instead of throwing this paper in the trash, turn it into something that's art component. The other thing I wanted to work on today, now that I've got a piece of this is just some deli paper that has some paint, leftover paint scraped off onto it, right? And I can use this for a couple of different techniques. So let me tear this down and show you a couple of different things. We were talking about resist, so let's do some resist.
Start cutting the rounded ends off some craft sticks for shingles. Oh, that'll be fun. So this is gesso resist. So that's kind of what I was doing in my journal. And because I used acrylic ink and acrylic gesso, this is permanent. So once it's dry, if it gets water on it, it's not going to matter. But you don't have to do it with acrylic medium. You can also just use like a water-based medium in any form. We've got a lot of options on water-based medium. We got pens, we got sticks, we got watercolors. Here's a set of watercolors. I don't think you guys can see it. I need to just get these wet. And with an application of something like a stick or a gel stick or something with a brush, you can get more precise application. So, of course, I don't have any water. Shoot, how dirty is this water? It's questionable, but we're just going to go for it. So, you can go through and do your resist with this as well. As you can see, the watercolor soaks into the areas that are absorbent. And this is just a cheap little card, right? It's just an index card, but that's absorbent to the max totally, right? That stuff, if there's ever was an absorbent paper, it would be index cards. Of course, watercolor paper is very absorbent as well. But as you can see, you can do it with a water-based medium too. I like to spritz things and let them run because I think it looks more organic. But where the gesso is resisting the color. So just really a fun thing to do. Fun, I think.
So this is all I did is I took, paint and created some painty paper backgrounds. Just take a card or something, scrape some paint off, and you've got your background, right? So this you just set aside and dry. All right, so now we've got some pieces that are already painted up like this because this is dry now. All right. So I want to get some of this stuff out of my way so I get on the screen better.
I was able to use
a little. Some heavyweight paint. This is Quin Magenta, and Golden Heavy. And, you know, the heavy body is going to dry differently than your. The reason I like the fluid is because it dries quickly. You know, when you put an application like this down on your fluid, it's going to dry quickly. The heavy body is not going to dry quite as fast. So I'm going to take a wet brush and I'm going to water down that heavy paint a little bit. I want to thin it out because I want this to just brush onto my painty paper surface. So for this one, and it needs to stay wet long enough for me to do what I want to do for resist. So I'm going to take this wet paint and I'm going to just paint it right over that green. We've got that red-green opposite combo coming on to the page here now. So while it's still wet,
Crayons.
I can drop some alcohol into it, and I can just here's an alcohol spritz bottle. I can just spritz it. I can hold this up high and just spritz it, and I can, you know, do kind of like a alcohol ink technique, and then I can also take a pipette, and I can drop bigger drops into the paint while it's still wet and get it to move. See up here, I think it's a little bit too thick. You can see it moving some. And I may just, you know.
Over there. See if any of these will work. Oh, there it goes. All right.
You only want to squirt it lightly because if you get too much, it's just going to make a puddle, make a mess. But you can see,
That one does not wish to work.
you can see the resist that's happening here with the alcohol and the paint. Set that one aside and let's do something else. Let's do this one. And I think I need to mix that paint in. This is an older tube of paint and it's gotten a little bit gloppy. And they do that if you don't use them up.
That's for sure.
So now I've got, here's a soapy water. All right. So let's try, this is just a tissue paper, a printed tissue paper
Nice to put this stuff.
that has some color on it. And I'm going to add some more color over the top. And I'm going to spritz this with the soapy water. Just one. I'm going to let it sit and see what the reaction is here. Because what I want, let's see if I have an example. I had some done earlier, but I'm not sure where I put them. Oh, here we go.
Oh, this one got a little bit of, oh, this one was the clear gesso. Okay. Let's see what happens when you use clear gesso.
You guys see what happens with that? This is the alcohol that's dried down now. And this is more of an opaque paint on top of the more translucent. So you can still see some of the printed text coming through. But I could take my trash then I can layer that right over that background and make something fun. So can you guys see the separation here now? See what's going on? Try that with a dropper and some alcohol. Or rubbing alcohol here.
So that's gel sticks and clear gesso. I better write that on the back, huh? Before I forget. What happened to my pen?
So let's get some of this on here. And let's take our dropper and start dropping in some alcohol.
Oh, a little bit of mud there. Probably should use a clean one.
Now, if your reaction isn't working well, it depends on the paint that you're using, the absorbency of the paper. You want to use a paper that's resisting the paint because you want it to sit up on top of here for it to have time to work with the things that you're dumping into it. And you want to make sure that it's wet while you're doing this so that it's reacting with the medium that you're adding. So I'm just going to clean out my dropper.
Gel sticks with clear gesso. This one is Neocolor 2. It's not dry. Neocolor 2 with white gesso.
Yeah, this is coming along.
This one was watercolor. And white gesso.
Dry a little bit. Not all the way. Not all the way yet.
This one's the prettiest because it's staying very intense with the acrylic ink. Acrylic ink. I really like that one. Very bright, very intense. And then this one was mica spray and white gesso. So as you can see, gesso is something fabulous for resist. It really is.
It really is.
It's great. I mean, it's just so fun to do and so easy. So now let's talk about these textured ones. So this is something you could start your start your page with texture like this by pressing things or scratching things, or any way to make all this very deep texture. I just need to write here. This is, before I forget, Liquitex Clear, and this one is Art Basics. Now that it's dry, I can really feel the difference. This one is completely smooth. This one is very scratchy, like sandpaper. Hear the difference? So that's the two different clear gessos I have. And the gold gesso and the tinted gesso and then three different black gessos. I'm making this whole thing. I didn't do anything with that yet, but we will. But let's talk about this texture. Hopefully it's dry. It's not completely dry. The texture is when it really gets fun with drippy mediums, like sprays. I don't know if any of these work, but these are permanent sprays. These are from Marabou. So these are acrylic spray, right? And yep. I'm guessing they don't work. But if I can get one of them to work, you can see that it's really fun. Ugh.
I don't know if this will show up, but I'm going to try it. I like to do tone on tone.
This is why I don't like spray, people.
Because sometimes you can get some pretty cool effects in the background with texture by using tone on tone. So I'm using a phase on.
Anyway.
And this is too close to the color here, so I'm going to switch it up. And I'm going to go to a claret.
You're better off with a fluid acrylic if you want something permanent. That could be a golden high flow like this, or it could be any version of these acrylic inks. I got all different brands. It could be Deco Art fluid acrylic paint, any of those type of things. But let's do this one with the golden high flow because it's fun. So you can just get some of that on there. It's already fluid, and then you can make it move around into your texture with water. Oh, come on. My spray bottle's almost empty too, which is not helping the situation.
No, that would not.
I literally was unpacking this morning, so it didn't even occur to me that I should refill the spray bottle that I took with me on my trip. But you can get it to run together, you can get it to smush together, but then it sinks down into the texture and makes a really interesting effect. So I particularly enjoy that. And then once this is completely dry, the thing about gesso is it's usually sandable because it's so chalky. So you can take a little sander like this, and you can sand the tops off and make it even more dramatic, right?
Right.
Fun. Love it.
So I'm going to use something kind of unconventional. This is plain old chalk mastic. And you can get this at the $1.25 tree. You can get it, a lot of different places. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on the products that you're using. So let me cut this off. Oh, it doesn't want to. It's something more heavy duty. Heavy duty.
What color is that?
Nice thing. So I'm just going to
get
that off, and you can see that now I've got this exposed. This is a new tube that I picked up not too long ago.
These other ones.
I don't know.
Have any water?
Or it might not be. I don't know. I've got stuff in my studio. So put the shield back on my scissors so I don't poke myself. Always safety first, right? So this is fun because you can take a stencil or something. Let me grab something here. I just got a ring of my Tim Holtz stuff. And this is one from Stencil Girl. What do I want to use here? Don't want Christmas, I know that. So I'll grab a couple of things here for texture.
Ooh, that's a pretty color.
And you can get little twist bindy things on Amazon too. I got a whole pack of them and I use them for a number of different things in the studio. But, your key card, key cards, and a stencil, and we can just have some fun. What do I want? I think I want that one. I like that a lot.
What a mess.
So I'm just going to get some of this mastic out onto the stencil. So I've got something to move around on this piece of paper. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to scrape it through the openings in my stencil.
So that's fun, right? That's fun. I love doing that. That is a great way to start your page. Or your art piece, whatever. And this one will be cool if I sand it back once it's dry. It's going to take it a while.
Nothing better than art components, right?
Ha, making such a mess.
So I'm going to come from this side now. I'm going to add a little more of this.
Okay, so here's that black gesso, right? It's got texture, but it also is fun to do a resist with that. So let's try something with that. Here's some Kappa.
Kappa.
Why not Kappa? Goes, how about magenta? Magenta and Kappa.
Okay, that's good enough.
Very well coming out.
Got it scraped off. And same thing with this. You want to make sure that this goes into your water. But you can see what a nice covering you get with this white chalk mastic. Another thing I like to use is the lid on this. Another product from the hardware store. Yeah, those Tim Holtz scissors are pretty heavy duty. Absolutely right. So here's my next piece of paper. You guys can see how nice that worked. Just like filling holes in the wall when you need to putty up the wall, right? So I'm going to set that aside to dry. And on this one, I'm going to use another product and another, let's get this other Tim Holtz stencil. I like this one because it's got a lot of texture and things. And this would be great to tear up and use in collage. This is great too. So let me get to
space clean a little bit.
Product here, which is
so
wood
let's
filler.
Get back to our page.
It's just regular old wood filler, but it has the natural color. So if you don't want white, here's a way. Of course, you could color the other stuff too with some other medium, but this is a nice color, kind of sandy.
Do a couple other things here with gesso. Another thing you can do with gesso. I need another thing to put under there.
Oh, this one may be dried up. I may need a new tube.
It has gesso. Way back in the beginning of time, when I first, not the beginning of time, but kind of at the beginning of mixed media, the art journaling and stuff, I noticed that people were using a lot of gesso to glue stuff. And of course, that's fun. And actually, this other book that I have that you've seen me journaling in recently, this one, is exactly that. It's, well, I put some more gesso on it today, but these tissues and napkins, all the ones on this page are tissue, were put on the page with gesso. So that gives you just a different look of what a napkin can look like. Hey, come back here.
There's a little bit
down with gesso.
Moisture. We'll give it a try here.
Come on, just stop being so.
On a spongy.
Where is my one of these? And I need just some regular gesso.
I mean, you may have this stuff sitting around in the garage just drying up, like mine. So get it out and make some papers. Make some cool papers.
So instead of using matte medium, you might use white gesso to glue down your napkins. And then you've already started kind of a background that has a little bit of a tint to it, but it's also stuck everything down, right? Like that. That'll dry. The napkin will be on there, and it won't be as bright as it once was, but still has a good layer under there. Also, the insides of your napkins, like this, you know, remember I took 3-ply off this napkin before I kept just the colorful part. You can use these to make texture with your gesso. You just, you know, shred it, wad it up, make it interesting, and then just put some of that on with your gesso and make it, try to make it wrinkly, you know, try to make it bumpy. So why not, right? Just get it good and soaked with gesso on there, and suddenly you've got another interesting texture on your page or your piece of art.
So this stuff, of course, is a lot thicker than it normally would be. But you guys get the idea. It's just another medium that you can push through a stencil and create texture with. Drop that in the water. And set that aside to dry.
Everything has to dry.
Yep.
But that will be super interesting once it's dry.
And now I've got this hunk of this wood filler that's almost dry, because you see when you get down to where stuff is really icky like this, just cut the end of your tube off and you can dig out from the back end. So I've got this wood fill putty that's gotten really thick. So I'm thinking, well, what can I do with that? You know, it's almost like clay now, you know, because it's gotten to that consistency, and I want to get it out of the tube. Because I don't like to waste. I don't want this stuff just going to the landfill. So I'm going to spread that out.
All kinds of gesso on it in weird patterns because it's just random. So I will put some color on that and make it into collage paper too.
Now this you could shape and mold almost and let it dry into something interesting. You could take, oh, where's my cookie cutters? Where are my cookie cutters?
For sure.
This stuff is thick enough. I can probably cut it with a cookie cutter.
I don't really want to get anything on that page on either side. Would be good.
That is handy somewhere.
That's a little bit better than the paper. Okay. All right, let's see. We've got blue, we've got pink. How about some blue? Let's see what we got here. Get some dripping, dripping, dripping. So this has some very textural pieces on here of heavy gesso through a stencil. And I'm going to go fill up my water bottle. Just have to.
I don't know where my cookie cutters are right now, but you can use any kind of shape. You can push something into this for an impression. I've got some molds. I can probably mold this stuff. Push it into a mold.
What you doing, Mica, huh? You be a good girl. You're such a good girl. Where is my paper towels? There they are. Come here, paper towels. I'm going to need you because there's going to be a big mess here.
Where's my powder? I need my baby powder. I got a star and moon mold. And I was going to put some baby powder or something on here for a release. Yeah, gotta have something here. How about I'm going to use a rosin bag from stamping. Put some of that in there to help release. And so now I've got this. Now I've got this fill. And see, I've got these moon faces. So I can take some of this wood fill.
That's pretty fun.
Fill in some of these. That so I don't waste this product.
Here, a little bit of green.
See if I can get an impression here. There, see? You guys see that? That's kind of cool, right? If I can get it off my finger. There's that one. See what I can get in the bigger one. Take my key card and see if I can push that down a little bit better. Wants to stick. So maybe I need a piece of paper.
I'm just going to start to that page. So you're starting to see some of this gesso resist come up. And also just some of the texture.
Yep, that one's stuck. I pushed too hard. Pushed too hard. Now I got to clean that one out.
Blopped stuff onto those things I
So
was
that
trying to
will
get right. Ugh.
All right, let's try this one.
Hope I saved this from getting anything on it. Well, I got a little bit on the bottom, but I can wipe it back.
Now you can let these dry right in the mold. I'm just pulling them out so you guys can see them. But you can see I just piled that up in the mold there. And this little face, if you want to trim that out, you can just take a pair of scissors or X-Acto knife when it starts to set up and trim that out. Let me see if I can ease this one out of here to show you. Easiest I've done.
So I'm pretty happy that these two pages, this one, which was very different paper from this one, both came out looking pretty much the same, right? With the gesso resist through this really cool stencil. It's the first time I used it.
Yeah, it's got to sit there, guys. So I'm going to let it sit and dry.
What stencil is this? That's a really cool one.
And I will just.
Oh, it's by Wendy Brightville. She does all the floral stuff. So I'm wondering what to do now that I have this interesting background with this gesso. I think I could maybe color through the stencil and make it even more interesting, maybe by using some lighter colors onto the gesso bits. Like, what if I used a little bit of this gel stick? A little bit tricky to hold the stencil down when it's a book like this. But
Peggy says, say hi to the puppy.
to Mica moo, hey Mica, what you doing? See, I'm being a very good girl. I'm not doing anything. I'm chilling the most.
Caulk plasticky. I have a sample that I can show you. I mean, it's just like regular caulking. You know, it's paintable. It's just like what you fill holes in your wall with, or around your bathtub with, or, you know, there's lots of different products that you can use that are paintable. This wood fill is paintable. But I know the wood fill kind of dries hard like wood. The caulk might have a little more elasticity than the wood fill does, but I'm not sure just what you're looking for. Give it a try, you know. I just lead you down the path. You got to go experiment now. Show me. You show me something. So this is going to take probably overnight to dry in that mold, because, you know, this is still very, very wet. This little face here is still very, very wet. And I kind of like the way it ended up curving around. I mean, I can even shape that a little bit more, but you can glue that onto something and add some,
that's fun.
Add some, what do you call them? Seed beads or something fun to it. Feathers. I think that's a fun little face. And it, you know, at this point, this is almost moldable like clay. So, all right, let's get back to what we were doing. But you can see, you know, that was pretty dried up stuff, because I've used it for other projects in the house. I filled wood. That was just what was left in the bottom of the container.
You used it for what it was meant for? How crazy is that?
Oh, right?
Who does that?
So let's see if these guys are getting any drier. Yeah, see, this is the one that has the caulking on it. Just the regular caulk. And it's not all the way dry yet, but it's flexible enough, you know, that you can put it onto your page and it's going to be okay. Or you can paint over it, or you can do whatever you want with it. But yeah, so that's the caulk. These are some of those papers I was using the alcohol resist on. So great papers to tear up for your collage. So that's kind of fun. And let's see how our other stuff is doing here. This stuff is still wet, but you can see the texture in there. Pretty cool.
So that's just kind of fun. A different look. I didn't have it up high enough. And I think that I can take that stencil, that dirty stencil, and a piece of white, like maybe some rice paper here. What do I got? Rice paper? Sure, rice paper. Where did that dirty stencil go? That dirty stencil. There we go. This is something that has nothing to do with mediums, but if you want to clean off your stencil, you don't want to waste stuff, right?
Right.
This is what you can do. You can make another piece of paper with it by just using a baby wipe. Hey, don't move. Get all that stuff off it. Because this is water-based media, right? So the next time I use the stencil, it's going to be all over the place. So there's another piece I can use. I might even use that in my journal page. I don't think I'm going to have time to finish that, though, because it's already time to go. But you get the idea.
Yeah, you're getting there.
Mostly I just wanted to get you guys started on making some little cards, a little flip card thing with some index cards for yourself
That's fun.
to, you know, remember. So these aren't dry yet, so I can't really play with those. But you'll see this is going to be a very interesting texture one someday.
I think I want to put some of this, I don't know, maybe some of the pink and some of the fossilized amber on this fish. What do you think? Does that sound good to you guys?
Sounds good to me.
So let's get him over here. I don't think I have enough.
All right, so what all did we do? I think it's time to do a roundup of all the crazy stuff. I'm going to write the back of this. Gesso to glue, napkin. I can't even mess with that one. It's too crazy. Too crazy. Where did they all go? Got stuff laying around everywhere.
I know, right?
Well, I didn't even mess with the gold gesso one. Just going to show you guys what stuff looks like on top of the gold gesso. You can get to that.
And now we're on pink.
So I need to find all my little cards. I also didn't do anything with that one. Cards. Oh, there's my notes. I should have looked at my notes to make sure that I did
What,
everything
you made
I was
notes?
gonna do.
I'm so impressed. That's impressive.
Notes?
Yeah.
So when you do your whole background with black gesso, you get a nice matte surface like this. You can do anything over this. You can write with colored pencils over black. It looks really cool. Gesso, with the exception of obviously gold gesso, is going to give you a really matte finish. So like with the clear gesso, one of the simplest things to do with it is to use it to seal your pages, because then, you know, if you've got sticky stuff on your pages or you've got stuff you don't want to move, you can put the clear over the top of it. So I guess we did a lot of the work. I guess we did mostly with different products, and I think I wrote on the backs of all these what they were. So I can add those. Gesso as glue. Just talking about the different ways that gesso comes. Different brands are different. You know. Yeah, I guess I didn't get as much done as I thought. Oh, and then of course I did a couple backgrounds in my here's my junk journal one, which I put some color over the Gesso Resist just to see what it was like. And this is going to need to be sealed, so this would be a good time to seal it with my clear gesso, you know, once it's all dry. And then what happened to the other one? Oh yeah, it's over here. Here's another good start of the background. In this one, I think I would probably calm a little bit. Another thing you can do with gesso is to put it with water. So there's just a little bit of gesso in a lot of water and calm something down in areas or all over if you want to. So this one.
So, you know, I showed you a number of different techniques for resist. You've got your die cut out of all of those strange things like bathroom tissue. So I hope you play around with some of these techniques and make it your own. We use some embossing glazes, some chalk, some wood filler, alcohol, different fluid paints and heavy body paints, and you know, so we recycled our packaging, you know, so that we got some fun effects from our packages and some stamps. But I hope you enjoyed this today, guys. I hope you will, you know, make some of these components for art yourself and just play and have fun.
Yeah.
Any questions about today? $1.25 store, absolutely. Thanks, Barb.
Oh, I didn't embed anything in the gesso. That's another fun thing to do.
Yeah, and the same
And
thing.
doing text lifting.
Same thing with the wood fill and
I missed a couple things on my notes.
Mastic. I mean, you can put things into them. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay, guys. Another week. And we will see you again soon for more fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye.